That's so interesting. Another thing that's interesting as well is, at the beginning of the book, you're in the present day, and you talk about some safety issues. So it's really interesting that safety, that's one of our biggest concerns. It hasn't evolved that much, really, considering how many years have gone by. That's quite concerning.
Yeah, and you probably know more about this than I do. Like, what is the safety of toys now? Like, I don't even, like, would you say most sex toys are safe, or?
Well, the thing is, there's no testing of the materials, and some people say, it's body safe silicone, but it has this weird smell. So if it has that kind of new car smell, it's supposed to have lots of chemicals in it. And if things are flexible, they tend to be more toxic, so what I've heard. But I have a rabbit vibrator that's transparent, made of jelly, which was from maybe 15 years ago, those typical rabbit vibrators that had the pearls inside. And it started to disintegrate. It's quite shocking. It's literally fallen off the files. I just keep it just for reference, just to show people not to buy jelly toys, because there's still some shops selling jelly toys around. So it's really quite scary, and people don't realize that I think people should invest a bit more in sex toys, not just go for the cheapest thing, because you're putting it on your genitals. And also for butt plugs, I think the flared base is not wide enough. There are stories that are in the press. There's a couple of stories. I read one from this girl who was playing with a butt plug with her boyfriend, and then suddenly they said, "Where's the butt plug?" And then they were looking for it everywhere. And then she lay on her belly, and her belly was vibrating or something, and she had to go to A&E. There's a really weird picture of a X-ray with this butt plug inside. But it's really good that she actually shared the story, because these flared bases, which are not very big at all, are just too narrow. So I think people need to think about making those butt plugs wider, definitely.
I had not, this is a part of sex toy safety. Like, I knew it had to have a flared base, but I, until now, didn't realize that some of the bases weren't flared enough, and that I hadn't heard of the story. That is terrifying.
The typical ones with those jewels, that's not wide enough. The ones that are supposed to have some kind of jewel at the bottom, it's like, no, that's just, might look nice, but it's not going to look so good if you go to A&E.
Oh my God. And what is A&E?
Like, the accident and emergency ER, sorry.
Okay, no, I was just clarifying. Is that what they say in, like, you're in Spain right now, right?
Yeah, but I'm actually British, so yeah, so it's a good that you corrected me, because maybe most people who listen to this will probably be based in the US, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely.
And you don't in Britain, they don't regulate sex toys, right? Like, they don't.
They do anywhere. I think, for example, condoms are regulated, but to actually regulate sex toys will make the procedure or the kind of development more expensive and more lengthy. And I remember being at the Aerofame sex toy fair in Hanover. I go every year, and there was a company that was doing safety just to check, nickel. For example, the charging points should not be near the body. That's another thing.
Yeah.
So and then no one was going to this stand. It was incredible. There's this like company that was testing sex toys on behalf of companies. No one was interested. Everyone's just like, get them out there, sell them. So I guess with all the shame associated, it's very difficult to attribute some kind of issue to a specific toy and the company. It's very difficult to actually have any legal problems, I suppose. I guess lots of things happening that we don't find out about.
Yeah, and I wrote about this a bit in my book, in the history. There have been dangerous sex toys. There was one that like perforated someone's cervix, like some sort of vibrator. We even, going back to, and this was a user error, but going back to like 1919, when there was when electricity was new. Actually, maybe even before this, but a woman used a plug-in vibrator in the bathtub.
Oh, wow.
And she died because she electrocuted herself. And they didn't really have warnings. People just didn't understand you can't use vibrators in the bathtub back then. But later in the 50s, and that was back when vibrators weren't openly marketed as sexual, but later in time, in the 50s and 60s, there were dangerous vibrators that hurt people. Or I wrote about like dildos made of the same equipment tires were made of that you shouldn't be putting in your vagina, and that smelled awful. And if consumers, if they didn't work, if consumers had a rash from them or some problem, they were too embarrassed, especially because they were like illegal. And in the US, sex toys have been illegal in certain areas. There still are technically in Alabama, even where I live in Atlanta, until 2018, there was a suburb sex toys were illegal. And so when you have this device that has, you have the shame, you have the cultural shame of it, and then you have it's either illegal or marginally legal, you can get away with selling anything because people aren't gonna, march on Washington to say that butt plug, went up their ass and into their stomach. I mean, very few people are going to be open about that.
Absolutely. For me, personally, I always use condoms for insertable toys all the time because I've had a couple of trips to ER myself.
Really? Wait, what happened?
It's quite awful, really. I've never really shared this before, but it was from some Kegel balls. The Kegel balls that are very textured. I'm really against that, and also some Kegel balls that have holes between the string. Have you seen that? I mean, they're so dangerous because you can never clean them properly. But basically, it's happened to me a couple of times actually, where I've had this thing called Bartholonitis. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's the Bartholin glands, which are the glands that that lubricate the vagina. So I got kind of it got blocked. So one of my labia got really big and swollen like a cyst, and it was the most painful thing I've ever been through. So, and I remember actually the first time it happened to me was the first time I went to the sex toy fair in Hanover, and I was just looking around thinking, I wish there was some safety in this place, And then 2 days after, when I got back, I remember I went with a company and everyone was like laughing and dancing and getting wasted, and I was on that. I was just like walking around in kind of pain, a bit like John Wayne. Then when I got back to Spain 2 days later, I couldn't walk because it was so bad. I had to get a taxi and go to the doctor and get penicillin, and then they had to kind of like pierce it to get all the pus out. It was a really very and then you've got this cut. It's a very painful experience. And when you go to the loo to urinate, you've got that acid on this cut. It's like, oh my God, I have to do it in the shower. It was just the most painful thing ever. So now I even use condoms with Kegel balls. And also I do kind of work on the development design side of toys as well. So I'm always making sure that things are as safe as possible. Let's say smooth surfaces, no textures, no kind of place where germs can harvest, because it's really scary, and there's no control over this, and you find out the hard way, because obviously with 700 toys, it's imagine something's going to happen on the way after all that testing, so.
Oh my God, that is so scary. And I've never, I talked to a lot of sex toy companies and users. I'd never heard of that happening. That's something. Do you know what caused it, or in particular?
It just could have been some bacteria being inside too long. So I think there's just something that causes a blockage. So it's a very ambiguous, because the body's very wise in that this Bartholonitis occurs when there's something happening that's not quite right in the vagina. But it did happen after using these Kegel balls. Wow. So it was I probably left them in too long, maybe. So they shouldn't be inside too long, maybe, these Kegel balls. And I thought I was clever, like walking around going shopping and keeping them in for a long time and getting a strong pelvic floor. But but these days I'm doing different things, condom and different things, just to be safe, because at least I know it's a new surface area every time,